Welcome everybody to the first show in 2022. It is my pleasure to welcome back Sam from Sawdust City. Sam, welcome back. Welcome back to Mooresville.
Thanks for having me again. Like we were just talking about, it's been almost a year since we did this way back when, and feels like we're back where we started.
I know, it's a little scary, isn't it?
Yeah, it is what it is. It happens so fast, but luckily, I mean, it's January, so we're pretty slow.
Yeah,
I feel bad for the kids. I feel bad for the kids that are stuck at home and the parents that have to deal with it, but here we are.
Yeah, here we are. And hopefully 2022 starts to become a more positive year than 2021 was.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, at least we have beer still, and we can always order it. I mean, we can't visit people's breweries for the next little bit. Retails will be open, but yeah, we're back to no bars and no restaurants, and ordering stuff online. So I think we've had almost 2 years to get prepared for this, so we're all pretty good at it now.
That's true. We've all gotten pretty good at it. So, which beer are we starting with tonight?
Well, let's start with I'm personally going to try. I'm not going to drink today because for the New Year's, I'm trying not to drink during the week, but I will talk about the beers happily.
Absolutely.
I had many of these over the holidays, which is part of the reason why I'm not drinking during the week. Let's start with You Got Me Humming, just because it's the lightest one in terms of color and vaguely more boozy than the Wee Heavy. It's 8.5%. It's the 5th anniversary of the beer that we've been doing with Eastbound. It's a Sam and Dave series this year. So every year we take a Sam and Dave song, the soul group from the 60s and 70s, Sam and Dave, and we take a spin on one of the titles of the tracks, and we make a beer based on that. This year the song's called You Got Me Humming, and we always just tack on For the Holidays. We did a Christmas farmhouse ale. Usually it's a Belgian bent that we do. This year we actually used a yeast strain from Escarpment called Jotun, which is a half Saison, half Kvike. And we added a new hop from Charles Ferrum called Most, which we were the first ones in Canada to use. It's a very unique strain. I get a lot of like pineapple and tropical fruit. It's very fruit forward. I think the Kvike plays on that too. It's very easy to drink for 8.5%. There's a little bit of that farmhouse, but for me, I also get a lot of melon, like cantaloupe, I want to say. But it's a very interesting. It's an interesting beer, and the yeast itself is very interesting. We fermented it pretty hot. Like we started at 28, went as high as 34, which is pretty hot. And I think Dave started his version at 34. So his took a lot less time than ours did, which is the Kvike portion of it. So, it's been done pretty well. I quite liked it. We reused the yeast in a grisette that's going to come out in the summer. It's just can conditioning right now, and it's quite lovely. It's 4%, but very versatile yeast. The guys at Escarpment are doing some pretty cool stuff, and this is the first time we've done anything with Kvike at Sawdust. We've done other stuff on collabs at other places, but this is our first any foray into like strains at Sawdust, even though it's only just a hybrid. Only a hybrid.
This is really well done, and I get the melon and the pineapple right away.
And the 8.5 is just hitting it, dried right out. It got down to like I think 1.8 or 2 Plato, very dry, not a lot of residual sugar, but it still tastes very full, which is nice. And I think it was good for a holiday drink and a holiday like meal. I think it was good pairing with that. Like I said, I had a bunch, and then Dave, there's an Eastbound version as well, which you can get from Eastbound. This year we were able to do the Feastbound, which was a dinner where we go to Eastbound and we do a 5-course meal, and Tara, the chef there, and Dave's wife, she knocked it out of the park. It was so good, and it was great to see everybody. At that point, all of a month ago, it seemed like everything was a go, and the restaurant was full. It was wonderful to see people. Everyone was in a festive mood, and then 20 days later, we're back to where we started.
Oh, like you said, almost a year ago. Yep.
Yeah. We didn't get to do the dinner like the year in 2020 because the COVID was locked down. So we were all super excited to be able to do this and put it together. And I think that was we had just done our 10th anniversary on November 18th at the Only. And that was our first event in quite a long time. And then we were doing this one that really, pretty rapidly doing another one. And then I think that was right when the first sort of like whispers of Omicron were sort of floating about, and then it just seemed like almost instantly 2 weeks later, and back to where we were. Because I think everyone did rush out, and it was exciting to get back out, and it felt festive, and it felt nice and happy and shiny, and it was awesome to be back in a bar and seeing people. It was great.
I hear you. It definitely was nice to have that period of time where we could visit people and see people and be out and enjoy life together.
Yeah. And, when we had the event at the Only, our tent there, I had been to the Only in almost 2 years, and that was one of our, my favorite spots to go. And it felt at the beginning, there was like almost like this tension at the beginning because it had been the first time I'd been normalized in a bar where you're sitting like having a beer at a bar as opposed to sitting in a sequestered to a seat 6 meters away from someone else. So it was almost like I had to relearn how to interact with humans that close, and it comes back real quick, which is I'm happy to announce. It was great. It was wonderful to see all the people, and yeah, it was great. And we actually had the beer there at the You Got Me Humming. That was the first chance we had to bring it out, and it did really well. It typically does, although holiday beers do have a very specific shelf life. I mean, the beers, they'll last a while, but once the holidays finish, they want to move on. So we try to make them more of like although it clearly says Christmas on it, it's more of a winter beer, let's call it.
Yeah, I can see that. Now that you've got one under your belt, are you going to do the next caveat a little bit higher temperature for the fermentation?
I think so. I'd like to try. I mean, I wasn't really a big fan of the Kvike at the beginning, but then I've had some really good ones. I'm a big fan of Indie Ale House's Safe Word, their Kvike Pale Ale. It's fantastic. And then I've had a couple other ones that are really good as well. So I think it just took time for people to sort of, like anything, everyone's testing it out, throwing everything at the wall. And once everything kind of comes out of the wash, they figure the best ways and the best practices to do it. So we'll eventually get back there. Usually we've already planned out this year almost to the end of the year in terms of our releases. So there's a few holes in a few spots, but typically we try to plan as far out in advance, trying to get labels done, trying to get cans in. Right now, everything's because of all the shipping and it's not just the pandemic, it's getting all of your supplies. Like the supply chain stuff is just so bonkers that we have to be way out in advance of everything. It used to be 2 weeks, now it's 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And when you're trying to do 30 releases in a year, trying to stay that far ahead. We've also had, people come and go. Like our staff it's been crazy. It's the revolving door of people. So you're just trying to 1 week you have a full staff, the next week you don't, and you're picking up different hats, trying to do different jobs. And people, the pandemic changed people's, what they wanted out of life, and they had different goals all of a sudden, and then you're off to another job because, life's short, go and do something else. And you're not going to blame them for that. So it is what it is.
I hear you. That was going to lead me to the question I was going to say. So everything that's been going on in the last even 6 months, how have you managed to stay grounded?
I mean, I don't outside of like traveling and doing like the beer related stuff, I don't feel like my life has changed all that much. I mean, I'm still here with my family, my kids. We do our day to day. We still, travel close to home, not far. So my dad and my brother live down the road. We've in the last 6 months at least been able to visit my in-laws in Oakville, and so in the summer we went and rented a cottage with our friends and went camping and did all that regular stuff. So I don't feel like outside of international travel and doing our beer events, I feel like for the most part, I've gotten away pretty luckily and been able to maintain normalcy. Sure, work's been different, but work's different constantly. So it's either this different or that different. It's going to be some type of different. I am certainly tired of this, and I was really hoping we were through it and coming out the other end, but here we are, and we'll get through it again, and hopefully this will be faster.
We're in the last part of it.
I hope so. I was, I was really excited. Tomorrow was supposed to be my son's birthday, and I was supposed to take him to his first Leaf game. And it landed on his birthday, and it was going to be playing against Connor McDavid, which was his favorite player. And I was like, everything was lined up perfectly. And then it all fell apart right at the very end. I'm like, but such as it is, we'll get there. So I'm kind of don't want to tell him that we were going to do it. He doesn't know. He still doesn't know. Because then maybe next year we'll do the same surprise and be able to do it. But it's it's unfortunate that kids lose out on a lot of these other chances to do stuff. But life's long, and they'll get future's a big place. They'll get another chance.
Yeah, that's true. We'll get another chance. McDavid's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Well, apparently he tested positive today, so he's out for at least he would have missed the game anyways.
Yeah. How has COVID changed your message at Sada City?
I think like with a lot of people, it's made us more in tune to what the public wants to hear, because all of a sudden your voice matters a little bit more. I mean, it always should have, and I don't know how much we want to be politicized. We've always sort of positioned ourselves as an escape from sometimes life's more pressing issues, but sometimes you do have to sort of let your voice be heard and take a stand and support the things that you feel are correct or right. And we've never not done that, but I also feel like we've also just tried to, we don't want to step on people's toes. We want to make it an inclusive place where everyone can come and just enjoy themselves, and that part of it hasn't changed, but we've just been a little bit more vocal about some of the stances that we feel are important. And through it's been harder as we've gone through 3 marketing people over the last year, moving on to our 4th, where we're trying to do this every month. We pick a certain charity, and we spend all of that month pushing towards that charity. The last one was a local community group that looked after the food banks in Gravenhurst. The month before that was JDRF, November being International Diabetes Month. The month before that, we did a thing for the local animal shelters. So like every month we have something, we do different events. Obviously we won't be doing any events this month because we can't, but we were able to do that for a couple months, do a couple events in-house and get people back and excited and supporting those local stuff. So I guess COVID just made us a little bit more vocal, and but we still, I don't know if our message will ever change other than we're a place you can come and have a good time, and rest assured everyone, it's completely inclusive and everyone can come in and we'll have open arms for you.
What's been the best change for you through COVID?
I mean, it's got me back in touch with some of the stuff like at the very beginning when I was doing all the stuff I hadn't done in a long time because I was the only one there that was allowed to kind of travel back in time. I think for me, it was allowed me to be more focused on my family. Like for the first couple of years, when you're out trying to start a business, you're a lot of times away. But for the last, almost 20 months, been here, and it's allowed me to really focus on spending time with my family and making sure that those ties are still strong. And like I said, I don't feel like I've missed anything. So I feel that's, for me, that's just a personal thing. I think it just really touched me with my family and my dad and my brother. We didn't see each other nearly as much as we have in the last 2 years. Like we do almost bi-weekly or weekly dinners at each other's houses and just rotate around, and that's been wonderful as well.
What music would I find? Sure, go ahead.
Someone had said in terms of customer, I think at the beginning we did see a lot of online store people reaching out online. That was a big swing in our customer base. So there's people from farther away. We still have our local people, but the online allowed us to sort of extend that reach. And we have Sandy does a great job putting together the monthly packages and getting stuff out. And we take great pride in those the beer club and our online sales. I feel like that's, really the only change in customer. We still have the same base. It's just trying to reach new people. We're more LCBO focused than we were because obviously there hasn't been restaurant and bar support. There just hasn't been. So
it's just referring to the fact that you were doing you were one of the first to do online sales, and that was pre-COVID.
Yeah, and I'm glad we sort of had that background because it allowed us to shift very quickly. I know a lot of people did shift, but we were already on that foot. We still, like a lot of people, lost a lot in terms of keg and draft sales because we had so much in package. Now that we're into the fourth time doing this, as soon as there's even like an inkling that maybe there's going to be a shutdown, we just stop kegging. We're just like, nope, we're done. We're not kegging. Everything goes to cans. Like we're not going to go through that wave of sending stuff out, getting it back. No, we're done. Fool me once, right? Like, yeah. So like we caught on pretty quick.
But that must change the dynamics of your can usage.
Oh, for sure. And which is also why we have to plan so far in advance, like making sure we have cans on site, making sure we are also in the process of switching a lot of you might notice the Lusciousness can if you have it. It's a digitally printed can as opposed to a stickered label or a sleeve. So that's a shift that we're going to be going to more of these digitally printed cans because the sleeves are one-use plastics that we're trying to get away from. They've already sort of banned them in Quebec, so I feel like that's probably something that will happen in the future in Ontario. Single-use plastics are on the way out. So with the digitally printed, I also feel it's texturally a little bit more interesting. I feel it's like you feel it in your hand. I like it, and there's a lot of room to play with in terms of space in the can. So that was another thing that we changed.
So I should have reviewed the last time we chatted. Do you do all of your can design in like the artwork in-house, or do you have an agency working for you?
Yeah, we do. It's all done in-house. So you'll see actually there's two different artists between these three cans. So Sandy does a lot of our LCBO stuff. She's sort of the main artist that we use. She rebranded the Lone Pine, the Skinny Dip. She does the Lusciousness. Anything you'll see in the Viva, anything at the LCBO level, that's typically Sandy's handiwork, which is very, very unique, and it's sort of become our image, and we really, really like it. We like what she does. She also runs our online store, so she's got a big hand in what Sawdust looks like. And then Big Deal and Hummin were both done by a new woman who started working for us, Dana King. She's a young lady that she joined us at front of house, and she started doing the chalk work in the saloon, and it was amazing. Like, for whatever reason, since we've been a bar and a brewery, we've had this ability to hire people that are really, really good with chalk art. As soon as one person leaves, inadvertently, someone will just walk in and be very good at it again, and it kind of starts all over. But Dana had bigger aspirations, and she wanted to do some labels. So big deal, and You Got Me Humming were her first two, and she's going to be doing some more. She's really passionate about it, so she's going to try to do it for her own style, but keep it in the world of what sort of Sandy started. And then Sandy will continue to do the ones that go to the LCBO and are more out there with the general public. Like, we do a lot of releases, so Dana's going to get a lot of chance, and Sandy's still going to be able to do her stuff. And we're hopefully going to be rebranding Old Woody and Gateway this year, so you'll see some new artwork with that. It might not be until later in the year, but she's definitely working on that stuff, and I'm excited about that because we sort of shelved some of our older brands for a little bit, and it's exciting to see them coming back and people wanting them, and put a new face to it. So that's pretty awesome.
So I want to talk about the Wee Heavy now.
Okay, yeah.
And then once we're done that, I'd like you to, I'm going to ask a couple questions about the digital printing on the can. So,
okay, no problem. So this one, the Wee Heavy is a sticker can. It's obviously different. This was our collab with Muddy York. We have been talking with Jeff for almost 2 years. He was supposed to come up that first in 2019, but that was obviously like shelved pretty early on. And then we were going to do a cocktail beer, and then that got pushed to 2020. Sorry, so it started in early 2019, and we got it done at the end of 2020 coming up. So it was almost 2 years. Man, time seems to have just collapsed. I can't wrap my head around what happened when anymore. But we finally, as the beer shifted from place to place, where we were going to do it in the year, it came down to we were able to do it in the fall, coming out around Christmas. So we wanted to do something that neither of us had brewed before, but we're really fond of, and that would be a good winter warmer. And we landed on a Wee Heavy. And I was super excited because over the last year, I guess this is another thing that I got really in touch with. I'm really excited about using different malts now. Like, I think, we all go through cycles. Everyone was, it's all about the hops, and it's all about the yeast for a while. And now I just really want to focus on different malty beers, drinking and trying out some, more UK style beers, which we never really done in the past. So I'm excited to do that. And this was, one of our first forays into that. So Jeff was able to come up. It was our first was the second in-person collab we were able to do since March 2019, which was awesome. And they were able to come up. We had a night out, and that was exciting on its own. And then we did like a 3-hour boil on the beer, which is again something we hadn't done, to really bring forth that caramel richness in the beer. So the malt bill is actually quite simple. It's just boiled for a really long time to give it that color and bring out some of that Maillard reaction and some of the caramelization. And I think it turned out great. I like to let it warm up a lot. Like, it's too easy to drink out of the fridge, so I usually let it sit for a bit and let that heat up a bit, get some more of that malt character coming through. I quite like it.
It is my favorite style of beer, just so you know.
Oh, fantastic. What do you think of this? Do you like it? Do you enjoy it?
I wish I'd pulled my can out earlier today and just let it sit. I find it probably's got a lot, it's got a lot of depth, but it's probably going to have more depth if I let it get warmer.
Yeah, definitely. It feels like I've had it right out of the fridge and been like, that's too easy to drink. And then I've let it sit out and I'm like, oh, that's better. Yeah. More contemplative when you're sitting there. And as you can see, It looks like we're all asleep by the fire. The guys from Brew Culture were also part of this. They provided the malt for this. So that's Dan. The three of us look like we've had a couple and are very much asleep at the wheel at this point.
I have to drop back to a couple questions further back.
Sure.
Mike's curious, do you have many people picking up kegs, like so they had a kegerator in their own house?
I would say more than we did in the past, but it's not like a huge number, but definitely more. A lot of our like local guys have been picking up kegs throughout the summer. It's steady, but not crazy.
Yeah. Okay.
And we do it to order. Like if someone says, hey, can we get that? We'll gladly do it if there's beer coming down the chute. If not, they'll be like, oh, you can wait to the next one. And they're typically okay to wait, or they'll pick a different brand.
Okay. And then Derek's curious, and I am kind of too. It's licensees have now had an opportunity. They've had 2 years of this. Are they making switches to can sales?
Some of them did. Some of them switched also to like becoming more of a hybrid where you can take cans to go. There's been, now that this opportunity is there, I still think it's very much in its infancy. I think over the next year or two, you'll see some boutique shops, some focus shops, some more, when you do collabs, you'll be able to buy the beer at both breweries. The first time we were able to do that was with Indy, and then we did it with Muddy York as well. We didn't do it with Eastbound because they had their own version brewed there. So we just kept it separate, but definitely you'll see, I think, some of that. In terms of most licensees, the biggest switch I would say is the keg size seems to have dropped from 50s to 30s. I think in fear of they just want to get rid of it quicker. And, you know, this constant in and out, up and down, are we locked in or locked out, has made them paranoid as much. And who can blame them? So we're not like upset by it. It's very understandable.
Yep, I can see why they do that. Yes, who wants to get caught?
Well, and what do you do with half a keg of beer? It's a lot easier to try to give a keg back when it hasn't been tapped than half a keg of used beer.
Mm-hmm. So how does the digital labeling of a can work?
Well, it used to be you get like a die print, you get a die cut, and then you have to get like 25 skids of like when we did our first run of cans, like all of like Skinny Dip, Gold Beach, Lone Pine, all that, we had to buy 25 skids of each one, and we had to pay for the die cut for that printed can. So that was a huge capital outlay. Yeah. And unfortunately, brands don't last that long. Brands come and go like the wind changes direction, which that's just the reality of business right now in terms of craft beer. So you have to have a little bit more. You can't do 25 skids. Where do you put 25 skids? We had 5 brands of 25 skids. So we had 125 skids of printed cans that we had to pay X amount for each can. So that's a huge amount of money. And then you have to tie up your inventory space with these empty cans. We had space, we didn't have that much space. So then came the sleeve cans or the sticker cans, and then the the technology of digitally printed cans, which allows you to do as little as 2 skids and allows you at a much lower cost get these cans printed digitally. I don't understand what they use. It's digital lasers. I don't know, but they're able to do it. The company we get ours done is by Hart in Montreal. There will be some other competitors obviously coming to the market soon because it's, you know, a little bit more environmentally friendly than the single-use plastics. And it's now that the technology's caught up with the practice. It was very expensive before, but like everything, that's price is coming down, and now it's feasible for us to do it. And it's a 2-week turnaround, so it's awesome. And you can get both matte and gloss, so you can see even on this lusciousness can, there's both matte and gloss. You run your hand across the actual cup, it's glossy, but then the rest of it feels matte, and so there's texture to it, which adds a little bit of extra fun.
It is. You're right. It's got quite the difference in the texture.
Yeah. And so we did a couple this year. We did Flap Doodle. We did this. Narnia has moved to it. Lone Pine will be moving to the printed cans probably in the next 8 weeks as we go through our last inventory of sleeved cans. It's the same layout, just moved on to the new format, but it's exactly the same one that we rebranded. And then as we go through all of our stickers and sleeves, we'll get to digital printed. And it can all be done. I mean, not that the sleeves weren't done in computers, but you get a better idea of what the end product's going to look like on your screen. And I don't know. I've been really impressed with it. I like it. It's clean and it's nice.
Technology is fantastic, isn't it?
Hey, right? Exactly.
You know, and what a great change. You know,
it is. And then, that this is like, necessities and mother of all inventions. And if we can't use single-use plastics, how do we get around this? So along comes Bob and he invents something that you can do this with. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about the Wee Heavy? And Jen's curious what the style is.
So like I said, this is our first sort of like, we've just started to scrape the surface of UK-based beers and more British styles. So my understanding is the Scottish ales. I don't know how happy people from Scotland would like me telling the British beers, but you had your shillings, you had your lower ones, and it worked its way up to the 90 and the 120, and then you have your Wee Heavies. So you have your Scotch ales. Apparently, I was talking to my watch. Sorry. Siri caught me there. So the Wee Heavy is a stronger version of a Scotch ale. I think it's sort of like the closest to me, I would say, is a barley wine. I think in terms of like malt forwardness, I think to me it's a little bit more caramel heavy than a barley wine would be, with not quite as much alcohol. Like barley wines get a little bit heavier, a little bit higher ABV, but really leans in. And what I got from, when both Jeff and I sort of were looking at the history of the style and what to brew, was it's a simple malt bill with lots of boiling. And we were both super excited to do that. Like the actual malt bill of the Wee Heavy is very, very similar to the Flap Noodle, which was just our bitters. And we just, obviously it's a little bit higher quantities of the malt, but it was just that boiling that really focused those caramel notes, and way less hops, just a little bit at the beginning for some bittering, but it's all about the malt and sort of just a contemplative slow sipper for the cold months. It's your favorite style, so what do you feel about it, Bill? How do you feel about Wee Heavy, and where do you think?
So as soon as I tried it, the first thing in my head was, oh my gosh, I wish I'd pulled this out like 3 hours ago to let it warm up. But classic Scottish ale done with higher alcohol contents. But the first thing that went in my head, it's got the exact malt forward flavor that you get with a Scottish ale.
You know what? I feel it's one of the unfortunate things that's happened in the last. I mean, it's hard to. This is like 5 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. There was so many British beers and imports you were able to get at the LCBO, and it was simple. It was like a wall of them. And now you go in, and you can't find anything. And what's there is not necessarily the stuff you want. It seems to be more macro than. You used to be able to get these small British breweries, and we had a lot of access to that. I think McEwen's used to, like, their Scottish shit, their Wee Heavy used to be like a regular list. And it was simple to get. Every once in a while, things pop in and out. Like I think you can get Timothy Taylor Landlord right now. If you want a nice, British ale, it's a fantastic way to get into it. But like all of a sudden, you can't get that anymore. And I think when 10 years ago, I was bemusing the fact that all we have is British beers at the LCBO, and now we have the grass is always greener. And then now that they're all gone, I'm like, man, I really wish we could get some more. But in its place, it's allowed, Ontario craft beer to really flourish inside the LCBO. So that's the other side. Just I do miss the imports a lot at the LCBO. And it's not just British ones. It's also, I find way less Belgian style beers there. Around Christmas, there seems to be a bit in the winter, but then it's slim pickings compared to the way it used to be. At least that's how I feel. And that was like one of the good things with the LCBO was that buying power allowed us to get really good imported beers at a really good price.
Yeah, that's very, very true. And it has definitely changed. I don't view bringing in all the pop focused, this is the word I want to describe them, beers that they're bringing in from the US now.
Oh yeah. And like some of them look like they're designed for kids. And you look at it, but they look like juice boxes.
Well, maybe that's the demographic they're shooting for, the ones that just turned 19.
Well, it is. And I think, people's palates have definitely shifted towards sweet. Bitter's become almost a bad word. Like, not even 10 years ago, remember everyone was fighting the hops arms race with how bitter, how many IBUs can you get? And now the pendulum has swung like the exact opposite way to you're not even allowed to put the word bitter on a can anymore. Like it has to be juice forward and sweet, and I don't know. But I mean, at least the West Coast is still out there, and I feel like people are turning back a little bit to the West Coast with so many hazies available and there's nothing wrong with hazies, they're fine. But I think for me, a West Coast is a little bit more drinkable. You can have a bunch of them as opposed to New England's, which get a little heavy after a couple.
So if you were to pin down one thing, what do you think the new and exciting trend is in the industry right now?
Oh my. Well, I really do think, well, maybe this is just, my own perception. I do feel like there is a little bit of a push towards lagers and a little bit more malt focused beers, at least at the breweries that I pay attention to, or the ones that I seek out and I look to as, inspiration, which I like because, there's nothing wrong with making hoppy beers. It's just sometimes we need a break. And I think people are turning back to some more traditional styles of beer that are meant to be consumed in that session style, like a little bit more than one at a time. Like, although all three of the beers we're having tonight are none of that. They're all very high ABV, but I mean, beers that you can enjoy and have a couple of and not feel overwhelmed. Like I feel like that, and that's, lagers are like that, but also like more of those low ABV malt forward beers. So, but that could just be me, and that's just my cycle of where I am in looking at craft beer right now, because certainly there's still a lot of hazy IPAs and hop forward beers, and that's never going to stop. But luckily now there's enough choice that you can focus on those ones that you like and want to focus on.
So you mentioned that, in the realm of breweries that you seek out. So I'm going to ask you, who do you think is in your opinion, sort of the hottest, newest brewer out there in the industry right now?
People are paying like on Instagram or on people's tongues. Like I think there's different things and different ways to look at it. I like, man, it's so splintered that it's hard to say. Obviously guys like Badlands and dudes making the hop forward beers and the Wood Brothers and those guys that really focus on that are going to be Instagram darlings because that's what they're pushing. Then you have guys on the other end of the spectrum like Godspeed, which, I think in terms of like beer nerds, they seem to be the ones that are really popular. For me, like I tend to go towards, and I'll just be honest, I just drink what my friends make. So I'm at Eastbound, I'm at Merritt, I'm at Tooth and Nail. I go to those places where the guys that I'm really good friends with. I still really love GLB beers. what makes awesome beers is Amsterdam makes awesome beers. They're all of their like, not necessarily the LCBO brands, but the ones they do, they have whatever they call it, when they brew it at their smaller pubs are great. The Collective Arts does great stuff. I mean, there is a lot of really good beer right now in Ontario. So I don't know. It's hard to say who's the hot new hand because it kind of comes and goes. I'm more sad with some of the guys that left. Like you see some of the ones that there was like 2 weeks there that a couple of breweries all sort of went away. It was like, oh man, is this the collapse when the Waller Street went away, and then Half Hours of Earth went away, and then somebody else really soon after, and it was like kind of felt like that was going to be like, oh, here's the mass calling of the breweries we've all been waiting for, and then it kind of just stopped, and everyone went back to normal. But that's what I'm more kind of like afraid of, because as more shutdowns happen, as competition gets tighter, it becomes a harder field to play in. I'd be really scared to start a brewery right now.
Yeah. This would be one of the more difficult times to start a brewery, and yet, Third Moon seems to have done quite well.
Yeah. They're one of those guys that really. We were actually just talking a collab that we're looking at doing, and I'm happy that we pushed it. We're going to do it towards the summer for a release in the fall. But we had just started talking about it, and then we were supposed to meet up at Indie Stout Night, and then I pulled the shoot on that because that was, mid-December, and I was like, I don't want to go to Toronto. I just want to get through Christmas, so I actually wasn't going to go, and then they ended up canceling it. So we were supposed to talk and meet about it, but we still have the internet, so we'll still talk. But I'm excited to work with them. They're really good guys too, and there's just a lot out there. And normally we'd be out there visiting them, and that's one of the hard things too, is like not seeing those people and not getting out there. So I feel a bit of a disconnect right now. We do talk on internets, but not being there face to face does make it difficult to try these and meet them and get to know these guys.
Let's talk about lusciousness now.
Okay, so
hazelnut latte.
Yeah, so this is a beer we actually did for the first time last year. It was okay last year, but I found I think I put too much hazelnut in it, and I found it a little bit one note. So this year we actually reduced. It's still very hazelnutty. I'm not
wow.
But like I feel it's a little bit more, if I can use the term, balanced. When you do sip it, you'll get the coffee will come through and the vanilla, and it's just more drinkable than it was last year. And the mouthfeel is just fantastic. I think the mouthfeel is like cream. I really like the mouthfeel. It's just full and luscious.
I'm in love. Wow. You really nailed this one.
Yeah, like I said, last year, when you do it for the first time, there's going to be mistakes. So like we just took what we learned last year and really focused on it. It seems silly to say, but like with not as heavy a hand, because it is still it is a verbose beer. If you were saying it's shouting, it's yelling, but I still think it's there is a balance there. You get the coffee in waves. And we stuck with the same coffee we've always used, Quietly Coffee. It's a Honduran bean that gets roasted here in Ontario, Quietly Coffee. And I absolutely, it fits so well with the beer. This is actually the 4th year we've used it with the LDV base, that we really, really like it. And Lee, the roaster out there, is just such an awesome guy. He's so nice. And, you want to support him. So we want to keep, it's a good relationship we have with them. So we want to keep that up as well. I'm really happy with it. It's going exceedingly well at the LCBO right now. And we just ran out again. So we got to package it again this week, and it hits back at the shelves. But hopefully they'll want it back again next year. I really like it. It's gotten me in trouble a few nights, so I try to take a back seat on it. I keep it in the back of the fridge, and it only comes out at special occasions now.
I can see why. That first thing in my head was I have to get more of this one and put it in my
Yeah.
cellar. Wow.
For me, a lot of it is the mouthfeel and that richness. It's really there. So you can see the final gravity. It's creeping up. Like we used to do LDV at 5.5, and then it came 6. And this is 6.8. So there's a little bit of lactose in there, but I don't find it cloying at all. It's definitely rich, but without that ridiculous sweetness. Like I've had some of those stunt stouts from the US where they're like 12 Play-Doh, and it's like drinking chocolate milk. I don't know. That's not for me. Like it's, well, no, this is about as heavy as I could take it. And we're actually, one of the things that I'm excited about for next year is that we have ordered a new canning line, and the new line, above being the fact that it's light years better than the one that we have right now, it's also got the ability to do 355s. And as I get older, I find myself really pining sometimes for those big ABV beers to be in much, much smaller cans. So we'll have the ability to do those now. So I'm excited about that. We get the new line in April. So it's, we've got a lot to look forward to in this year. We spent last year sort of lining up all the pieces. When we did get to travel, we went out to Quebec and looked at a lot of different lines, went to some breweries in Ontario. So we spent a lot of time getting this, and we're really excited about this new line coming in the next couple months. It's really one of the things that you also learn is that packaging is the single most important thing that you end up doing, because you work so hard to get the beer to the bright tank, and if you fuck it up there, it's all for naught. And that we lost an entire batch of beer this year to leaking cans. We spent so much time working on DOs, making sure our beer can last on the shelf of the LCBO. And we do a good job of that. I'm very proud of our team for what they do. This is just going to make it easier on them and take the mental stress that our canning line causes us out of the day-to-day, and make coming to work just that much sweeter.
I hear you on that one. Yes.
And a lot of it comes down to that. Like I've had lots of breweries where the beer is fantastic on site, but once it leaves the building, it's not so good. And it's unfortunate because packaging is a very important part. Luckily, there are, those mobile canners who are very good at their jobs too. That allows a lot of these breweries to get past that. But once you shift to your own canning, like it's very important that you get someone in there that knows what they're doing and understands how to make beer better in a can or a bottle or whatever package you choose. It's just so important.
Yes, it is. I stopped in at Lund's Mill in Nova Scotia the day his canning line was giving him a difficulty, so I never even got to speak to him.
Oh man, hey, like the amount I used to have a full head of hair. It was lush, but then I got canning and it all came out. No, that's not true.
Oh, I could see why that would be. I mean,
yeah, it causes heartaches.
I was at Rob's when he was first starting his small little canning line, and oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's and it's called, again, the technology's kind of, the line that we're getting is light years ahead of what I ever expected us to be able to get to, and so that's also very exciting. And I'm very it's going to change. It's a game changer for us. So super stoked. So even though the first 4 days of 2022 has been pretty rough, I still got lots to look forward to.
Well, that's exciting that Sawdust is getting a new canning line, and you're considering going to the short can.
No, it will still have
on some beers. No, on some beers.
And it's something that we're going to sort of work on, because we want to figure out where that lies. Like obviously the LCBO is still very much tally driven, so we'll stick with that. And that's just sort of what we're used to. But there are some that I think will benefit from being in a short can. At least we'll see if they are and see where that goes. It's another thing we get to experiment with over the coming year. It'll probably won't be till the summer Because then we have to, I mean, now that we've designed all these 473 mil cans, it's going back to the drawing board and doing it again on a 355 and learning how to do that. So, and we only have so much space in our personal retail fridge. So if you're taking it up with the same SKU twice, it doesn't make a lot of sense because we have so many brands, we just have to have them. Anyways, I'm getting it. It's that.
So changes at Sawdust. What's next for Sam?
We got a lot of, same things as we did last year in terms of the lager series. We're going to be doing that again. We just started. Last year, we did a lot of German focused beers. This year, we're doing a lot of Czech focused beers. So we have a Czech table beer, we have Czech Pils, dark lager, and a amber. We're going to be experimenting with more stouts. Got some collabs coming up. One beer that I'm very, very excited about. We've done it a couple times, but I think this year's version is by far and away the best so far. Is our grape ale that we've been working with Malivore with. In the past, we've done some blending at the end where we fermented it on the grapes and then added beer back to it to sort of give it a little bit of tartness. This year, we just let it be. And I really, really love the end result. It's very much all about the grape. So when you get it, you get a lot of that strawberry, a lot of grape, a lot of just, there's tannic structure in there because there's no bitterness, but it is not sweet. And it's quite an exciting beer. I'm glad that we're putting it out again. This year it's going to be in cans and it's called Love Sweet Love. We can find that probably around April. We're going to be canning it in the next couple of weeks. And that's the big one I'm excited about. Then we just have like our regular playful things that we'll be doing throughout the year. Our regular summer lineup and just switching things up. We are bringing back Kolsch and Alt. One of the things that we are kind of doing is instead of constantly changing, having different brands all the time, we're going to have like a rotating amber. So Ravener Steam, which came out of the lager series last year, is going to come back as our winter sort of amber, and then Old Woody will take over, and then Flapdoodle, and then Q Lager. So like we're going to rotate brands within a style to give people something fresh. But when someone wants to come in and have an amber, or someone wants to come in and have a blonde, we have something for them each time. It doesn't always have to be something crazy, just a nice beer to relax and think about. And ones that we've done enough that we're very comfortable with and we feel we do well enough that we can bring them back year after year and present them without concerning ourselves with whether or not they're going to be accepted.
So after 10 years.
At Sawdust, that 10 years, yeah.
After 10 years. What's a lesson that you know now that you wish you'd known 10 years ago?
Same what I've been telling myself forever, just be patient. And, it's making change is easy, not changing is sometimes harder. And just being comfortable with what you've done. Like I'm always nitpicking at a beer. Just let it be and, focus on just making instead of trying to change it all the time, just, massage it and get better at the process. So like after 10 years of Lone Pine, I'm more happy with it now than I've ever been. And it's the beer that we make more of than anything by leaps and bounds. And we've got it down to a place that it's almost, I'm just very second nature now. And I'm very happy with that. At the beginning, it was always like every batch to batch, I would be freaking out about one thing or the other instead of just being calm about it and patient with and letting it be. And that's what I'm getting with things like Little Norway. Again, I nitpick on that, but yeah, that's one thing. And I think I already touched on it. Learn about packaging. I wish I had done a lot more about that at the very beginning. It's been a 10-year learning cycle, and we're always still going to be learning, but we're much better off now than we were 10 years ago. Make it a more young brewer, that's something they should know right away is make sure you know how to make the beer, but then know how to get it into that damn package with like no oxygen and perfect. You need to freeze time on every can. That's the idea. Is you're freezing time. This beer is perfect now. It needs to be perfect in 3 months. So you have to be a time traveler, and sometimes it can be hard.
That's true. But in fairness, packaging has changed dramatically in 10 years.
Oh, for sure. Like I said, the line that we're getting is not anything like I ever thought or had seen before. And I'm glad, again, we were patient and we took our time. It's been as much as we spent last year doing it. We started this process the year before COVID sort of slowed it down. But then when we looked at every possible line we could have and came to that conclusion over time. So I guess, for all of it, it's just patience and being confident that you've done the right thing.
I'm curious, and I'll ask this after we go on off the record, okay?
Yeah. The other thing is, why did you do this in the first place? That's the
that wouldn't be. No, I'm curious which packaging line you're going with.
We're going. It's a CFT. It's a 10 head 2-seamer. Runs at about 100 cans a minute, which is we're almost 3 times faster than what we're running right now. So in terms of man hours, in terms of production loss, it's an exceedingly big jump forward for us. Like it'll just make our lives easier and better and make our product better. 2-seamer just means like right now you have a head and it seems 1 can, and that's all we have is like a single line. There's 2 seamers. So it's running at twice the speed. So it's like 5 feeding into each one. So that's what it means. So it just allows it to go twice as fast.
Yeah.
The seamer is what comes down onto here and folds the metal underneath.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I just didn't know when you said 2 seamers. I was like, but where's the second seam? Okay, that makes sense.
It's 2 separate heads. So right now we just have one. We have a 12-head rotary filler with a single seamer.
And then 10 heads means 10 taps or
10
cans being filled at once.
Yeah, and then the right now we have it's isobaric. The stuff we're moving to it's still isobaric, but there's a lot of volumetric technology that goes into it. So our fill levels will be much more consistent. Like right now, like we literally, it's us feeling it in our hand and weighing it every once in a while on a scale to get, here's our number. And whether we're happy with that number, it's got to be above 480, and that's the number. But now this thing will tell us exactly within 1 to 2 milliliters that each head is exactly perfect, which is like mind blowing to me because we're so used to, and each head is independent of each other. So you can take one out when we couldn't before. It's just so much better.
Light years different, isn't it?
And because we've been spending so much time on this, that's why I'm so excited, because it's a big deal. And the team that we have, they've been through the ringer with this canning line. Like some days are just the worst days on earth, and everyone leaves like a ball of stress. And some days you're coming in like, am I going to be leaving at a regular time, or am I going to be fighting this and wanting to give up halfway through? And our canning line, we put almost 8 million cans through it, so it doesn't owe us anything. But I do still want to punt it into the river, or at least go office space on it and get everybody with some hammers and some hockey sticks and just smash the shit out of it.
I thought you'd sell it to your worst enemy.
No. When we do sell it, we'll sell it to someone really, really far away, because I don't ever want to see it again. I don't want to hear anything about it.
And the cost of a canning line, has it come down?
Relatively, it's still exceedingly expensive. Like we are talking about, like the whole thing all in will be like, with everything that we're doing, will be over $1 million.
Wow.
So it ain't cheap. It's gonna, it's a big investment, but it's something that we have, after 10 years, we have to do.
Yeah. It's not for the faint of heart, is it?
No, and you'll see, like, breweries, when they do put money into stuff, it is things like candy lines where a lot of that money goes. It's not the sexiest part. People don't necessarily want to see that when they come to do the brewery tour, but you know, this thing is very important to what you get at the end of it. And you know, we've changed almost nothing on our actual brew house, and I love our brew house. We did our 2000th brew earlier this year, and I've had the amount of troubles it's given us is so insignificant that I'm happy we spent the time we did back then building this very utilitarian brew house. It's not the best thing. It's not the most pretty thing to look at, but it does its job spectacularly well, and it is very repeatable.
Did you say you did your 2000th brew?
Yeah. So
wow.
Lone Wine, which was our first barley wine, was an amped up version of Lone Pine, and that was our 2000th brew, and that came out the end of August. We brewed it in May, but it came out in August as we were conditioning it. But yeah, we pumped 2,000 beers through that, and it continues to do its job, which is, you know, having worked at Mill Street and gone through that massive expansion that they did and seeing what a production brewery has to be to function was a big learning experience. And I'm glad I was able to have that because it mattered. It didn't at the time. I was just frustrated because I, you know, making the same beers over and over. But in the end, that's what you have to do. So it might not be the most romantic, but it's a business, and you have to do that, and you have to have, you know, a stable ground to be able to make the fun things.
Well, all I'm going to say, Sam, congratulations.
Well, thank you very much.
Wow.
Appreciate it. I mean,
wow.
You were one of the first people that took us on tap way back when, so I really do appreciate that.
We were happy to do that, and it was quite an experience the first time you came in to talk to us. Sam, I want to say thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with us this evening. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Remind everybody next week, Matt from Farm League Brewing is going to join us. We can hear about the latest brewery to open up during COVID.
Oh, yeah.